Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of, or possibly the last episode, depending on how good it is, HR in your PJs. We set this up because, as everyone knows, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. A lot of stress, a lot of concern, a lot of bad stuff as well. But I'm part of a group called HR Punks, where it's a community that's been amazing, really, because there's a lot of HR professionals in that group that we're all sort of working together, all in different companies, trying to work on how we can make sense of the world. So I thought, do you know what? Why don't we try just doing a recording of this for 30 minutes once a week, and I'll ask a couple of experts on, and we'll get them to talk about what they're up to. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Matt Phelan, self-appointed head of global happiness, and co-founder of a business called the Happiness Index. And I'll hand over to my two guests, Sandip and Sakura. Sandip, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi, yeah, I'm Sandip. I'm HR manager for a company called Hudson Beck Group. So we've got a group of 5 companies. And yeah, we made the switch to remote working on Monday for all of us. So we closed the studio. And I'd love to share some tips that we've learned with you all.
Thank you, Sandip. Sakura?
Hi, I'm Sakura. I work for M&M World, but we're part of the larger Mars corporation. I'm the HR manager for our store in London, working closely with our other stores around the world. We actually made the decision to close our store on Monday. And so we are in a situation where we have a number of people who can't work from home because they're shop floor based type staff, and then a number of managers who are working from home. So we have a bit of both. And we've been doing a lot of planning, preparing, crisis management. So we'll be happy to share anything that we're up to.
So brilliant. So we've got a real range here of people that have got retail staff through to service staff, including professional service staff, including my team. So Sandip, what's been the hardest thing about the last couple of weeks for you?
I think, just a bit of backstory. I think remote working never really been an issue as such, as people were free to be able to choose, like if they wanted to do the ad hoc working from home or working from a coffee shop or anywhere else other than the studio. But I think what we were seeing the weeks leading up to this week was the longer term working from home and actually, doing it for a week, 2 weeks and so on, which really we've never really done. So I think the weeks leading up to this week, we just ensured that we saw what was happening, obviously, so we needed to make contingency plans. So as a group of leads, so our senior leads team, we got together and kind of came up with loads of what if scenarios, and then thought to actually create a guide for people for like effective ways of working from home and what can help. And it was like really, really long. We had loads of stuff on there, but I think there's going to be some stuff there that's going to help some people. And then we done a separate one for managers as well, because we found a lot of guides have been going around recently, and there's some that's very specific for managers and teams, and then there's one that's specific just for you individually. One of the challenges that we also faced was from I think about over a month ago, we had offered somebody a new role, and their first date was meant to be on Monday, and their hiring manager was actually on his 7th day of self-isolation. So obviously he was going to do the onboarding and get her all started and so on. So we just put her first day back by a day to Tuesday, which she was totally she was great with and totally understanding, but then obviously we decided to close from Monday morning. But then we made the decision that myself, the hiring manager, the studio manager, and obviously the new hire Lauren would be welcome to come into the studio, and we can just give her that experience, because just thinking out of the box, and we wanted her to have the most amazing experience from her first day with us at Hudson Beck Group and have that normal onboarding experience that everybody else has had, even though, yes, it's difficult times, and just really explain to her as to why we're obviously doing this, and to give her time to settle in with her manager in the studio and so on. She was great. Her reaction was amazing. She was like, there's never no judgment. We're all in this together. So she's now working from home, but, the support is there, and we've set up so many like scheduled calls and video calls and so on, but obviously not overkill either. It's as and when people need it. And we're just keeping up nice things like a good old 5-minute coffee chat that we'd have whilst the kettle's boiling and stuff, which is really nice. So, yeah.
So Sandra, a detailed question then. So that you were obviously able to do that last week. Circumstances could be changing more in the next 2-3 weeks. Let's say you're onboarding somebody in 4 weeks, and we are in the lockdown period where people have to stay in more than they are now. Have you thought about how you could onboard someone in that scenario?
Yeah, we are actually, we do have that scenario coming up as well at the end of this month. So again, myself and the hiring manager have already spoken about that and drawn together a plan. So we've got plan A, which is as normal, like let's say we're back in the studio and everything's okay. And then there's plan B of how we're going to do certain stuff remotely. So we've already thought about like setup of laptops and kits and how we can do that remotely, and we can, which is great. So he can use his own one, but we're going to provide all the software and the logins and so on. It's just about creating an action plan of let's get together, let's get everything out there, and let's try to find a solution of how we can do it, but do it virtually. So I'm going to be doing my normal HR induction, but all entirely virtually, like using Zoom, and then we've got slides as well, but just also ensuring that the support's there. Like if they need anything at all, you can communicate with us via loads of different means, and so we've got that plan ready, or we're working on that plan because it's like 2 weeks away. So
yeah, that's great. So Sakura, just bringing you in, what have you been up to at the moment in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so I guess a little bit different to what Sandeep's kind of been going through, because we're retail and we have a lot of, I guess, differences, different types of groups of staff that we're working with, where managers have access to emails and then company phones, and they can work from home, versus a large group of people who can't work from home. What do we do about them? How do we pay them? So a lot of we have obviously various pay policies, sickness, attendance policies, but kind of all that is changing at the moment. So we've really had to look and think hard about what is the best thing to do for our staff. How do we support them? How do we be fair? How do we pay them through this time? So we closed our store for 14 days. That was our first phase. And obviously now, as we all know, it looks like that may go on for longer. So we're starting to think about what the longer term plan might be. Running up to all of this, we'd had about 1 to 2 weeks of different crisis management. So we had a level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 each day, checking on the number of positive cases in London or the city that we're in.
Sorry, Sakura, what was that? What was the bit that you said 1, 2, 4, 5? Or can you explain what that is?
Different crisis management levels. So at level 1, it was obviously, okay, what happened in China happened, what happened in Europe is happening. And at each stage we escalated. So based on having 50 positive cases in London, then we looked at where we had 100 positive cases, then 200 positive cases. And at each level, we, because we're retail, because we're customer facing, because we also sell chocolate, we had lots of hygiene standards that we were increasing, not only for our customers, but also for our staff. So we increased cleaning. We had staff wearing gloves because they felt would protect them. We had barriers up in place so that to reduce interaction and some of that social distancing. We stopped taking cash because obviously it's a little bit more hygienic if we're just using card. All of this in mind really to make our staff feel safe whilst they were at work, until we obviously got to the point where that was no longer possible.
Did you say you stopped taking cash?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think that will be one of the new norm things? Do you think this will speed up? Because obviously being in China, when I've worked in China, it's pretty much a cashless society already. Do you think it will speed up one of those things? Do you think that's something we might not go back to in your business?
So with us, it's tricky because you have a lot of tourists. So you have that element, but like you say, in China, it does work. I think the notion of having cashless shops and cities and things like that, the argument as to why we can't do that has always been that the elderly population might struggle with that. But I guess in this situation right now, in a way, we're kind of disproving some of that theory. So it is a high likelihood. I think in the last 12 months or so, we've already seen a number of retailers move in that direction. Where I've worked previously, I used to work for Nespresso. You'd have a number of tills that were card only, and then only one or two that were cash. It also has implications for the likes of G4S and the risk that you're putting your staff at. If you have less cash in the building, you've got less chance of theft and robbery. So there's a number of things to think about. But I guess, like the whole working from home, where some companies liked it, some companies didn't, everybody's having to test these things now, and we're still surviving and making things happen. I guess it's a good experience to use going forward.
Yeah, and I think, Sakura, another question on sort of the group company that you're part of. It's quite famous for taking a really long-term view, isn't it, in terms of the market? Is that helping you on the ground with people knowing that your business takes a long-term view?
Yeah, so we take a long-term view, and we're also, because we're privately owned, we have a very supportive mentality, I guess, and always wanting to do the right thing for our staff. So when we talked about, how we're going to pay people, there were really no questions about the fact that, yes, we're going to pay our staff. What that turns into in the coming months, I don't know. I haven't got an answer for that right now. But very simple questions like, would we terminate people on probation? Would we lay people off? It was quite easily a no, we're not going to do that. Because it's not good for the staff. Also, reputation, you have to think about. We don't particularly want to be seen to be doing that. We don't feel that's the right thing to do. We have lots of plans in the pipeline for future, and yes, they may have to be reviewed, different projects, different store openings, things like that, because who knows what the situation will turn into. But I have been very fortunate in that way. And also being part of a large corporate organization means I have got HR teams with all sorts of different experiences and backgrounds. I've got occupational health, wellness, all different functions where we can work together. That being said, I'm in retail, we have manufacturing, you have head office, you have corporate, you have veterinary practices and services like that. So we feel that we're all working in different areas. We can bring that experience together and really deliver the best outcome right now for a really wide group of people.
So Sandeep, thank you, Sakura. I just want to kind of link up a couple of points there. So I think what was really interesting is around how Sakura's company are looking after their people, right? And one of the things we talk about quite a bit is sometimes some people agree or disagree, but I'm just a huge believer that there's no difference between company culture and company brand. I think they're the same thing. Do you think, Sandeep, obviously, because you're in a creative business, really, do you think that customers are going to remember after all of this how companies treated their employees? Do you think that's going to impact customer and brand?
Do you mean in terms of would customers remember, how organisations treated their employees and that for their reputation?
Yeah, so if you take, let's just make up two company A and company B, and you could shop in both. Same price, same everything, but company A really looked after their team throughout this crisis and company B didn't. Do you think customers will remember what's happened?
Yeah, 100%. I think everything that I've seen so far, this is obviously the first time in my lifetime that this has ever happened, but I think more than ever, people are really clued on, switched on, and just in touch with more things like this around sensitivity and just caring for one another. I think there was something that I saw with going around yesterday, Pret, for example. So let's say coffee shops. So Pret was the first one that had come out and said, a free drink on us for all NHS workers and 50% off everything else. That to me, I shop in Pret, but I also shop in Starbucks as well. And just that, the first thing that I saw was obviously Pret. Yeah, I think customers are going to look at that, and that's 100% going to help not only their employer brand, but their customer brand as well. And I think that it just kind of, it really resonates really well, I think, with a lot of people, and especially at times like this when people are really trying to get together as a community and help each other.
And I was just going to add on, I think it's also about your staff as well, how you treat them, how they feel, because they're going to be your best advocates for company reputation anyway. So prep staff, for example, are probably going to be feeling a bit better than maybe some other coffee shop brands that aren't being supportive.
Yeah.
I think you're right. You're 100% right in that. And I think what we were doing the weeks leading up to this week was ensuring we're just keeping in touch with all of our staff. We're always regularly updating them and letting them know what our plans are and just being totally open and transparent. And we made the call Monday morning before the government had announced anything. We just made the call and said, most of you are home already. This is going to be our last day here and we're going to be working from home from now on. You can go now or you can wait till the end of the day. So yeah, 100% agree with that, Shakira.
So a question with I'll give a bit of context. Last year we accidentally A/B tested this scenario because when we moved our London office from London Bridge to Blackfriars, we had a period of work from home because the new lease on the new office didn't start when the old lease finished. And we thought we'd planned it really well from a technical perspective. Like we had all the right equipment, we had all the right Wi-Fi at home, all that kind of stuff. But because obviously at the Happiness Index, we track how we feel as well. One of the things when we got to the second week, how people were feeling really dropped down, and people just weren't feeling great. And because the Happiness Index, we know that has an impact on performance. That's really important for us. We'd not done a good job, in my opinion, of translating over the social stuff. So have you guys got examples of how you're going to be able to keep your team socially connected if they are not physically connecting?
Yeah, like you say, it's a really important part of it. So I guess there's quite a lot of different things we've been working on. And for us, where I have a group of people without company laptops and things like that, that's another challenge. Utilizing things like WhatsApp groups, different types of calls, but also I guess even simple things like WhatsApp voice notes. I was listening to some the other day. It's a lot more powerful and meaningful than just a text message. You can actually convey a lot more emotion and get that through. We're also doing virtual lunches or high tea or happy hour or breakfast, whatever you want to call it, some time for your team to connect over video. We're trying not to talk about the virus and the situation. We're just trying to talk about how you're all feeling. It's not really a work call. It's more of that social element that you've mentioned. And what I want to look at is where, you see like those bingo type quizzes, pub quiz type things. How do we translate that into an online virtual scenario where everybody can participate and get involved in some of those things?
Yeah, I think I can add on to that as well. We're quite fortunate that we, like all our teams, we all have laptops and stuff, so we can connect through various different ways. Some of the things that we introduced when we sent out the guides last week ahead of saying this might happen quite soon were things like the no agenda coffee chats and stuff, like I said, what you would have like when the kettle's boiling, or if you're going to get a glass of water. There was one of my colleagues who was actually working from home all of last week, and it was just something that she said to me in a message, and I was like, right, let's get everyone on, or as many people as we can, and let's just have a no agenda 5-minute coffee chat. And it was just so nice just to see everyone's faces and seeing people's surroundings as well at home and stuff, and yeah, just to chat about anything and everything really, just for 5 minutes. And keeping up cultural stuff is so important. So at our place of work, when it's someone's birthday, we do this it's quite culty, but we do this really weird rhythmic clap, singing happy birthday, and it was 2 of our colleagues' birthday yesterday. So what was arranged was a Google Hangout for all of us to literally, we could all see each other and just like clap along for their birthday, and yeah, just keeping up stuff like that. And when our new hire was with us on Tuesday, we did the virtual lunch that Shakira was talking about. So that whole team, it's nice, that team, they all just got on there making their food in their kitchen, but just saying hello to Lauren and just making her feel really welcome. And she can also put a face to a name and so on. So when we're back in the studio, she'll know exactly who's who. But that's really important. Try keeping the cultural stuff up. Use the tech that's available. There's a lot of tech available, and it's just about being a little bit agile.
A question for you both again around listening, because a lot of the senior leadership in our client base, we have to declare Sandip is one of our clients. We've known for a long time. Also used to work for me for her sins. But one of the things that we realise is in stressful times, people go into that sort of fight or flight mode, don't they? And as leadership, it's about helping your team out of that. And communication is obviously a two-way process. We had a few conversations in the first weeks where people were saying, let's not do this, let's not do that. Which adaptation is really important, but how do you, I suppose for you guys, how do you manage up to your senior leadership? Have you got advice for HR professionals that are trying to explain to their CEO or someone that they need to make sure to listen so that the comms are really spot on? Has anyone got any examples of that or any advice?
Yeah, I would, I mean, obviously I can only share what we've done, and I think it's working well so far, but it's very much, number one is giving autonomy to those, your senior leadership team, in that how do you best think that you want to ensure communication is really clear and that you're listening really clearly as well. You're looking for signs, for example, if someone, you don't obviously want to overkill, like I said, and you're not checking on number of hours, you're checking on, not even checking, but it's productivity at the end of the day. They're working from home. If the output's there and the work's of great standard still, then you've kind of got nothing to worry about. But like, keep an eye out for silence, and you're just checking in, and just being really open about, look, this isn't me being micromanager. Like, my manager has said it to me, and he was really open. He was like, what do you think about this if we do this every day? And it's not because I'm checking in on you. I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. Let's just see how it goes. If we need it, great, we'll keep it. If we don't need it, then we don't need it. So autonomy, I think, is really key there. And that's something that we really kind of strive in. And just, keeping an eye on someone who's maybe gone a bit too quiet, but just checking in. That's it. You're not concerned for any other thing. The main thing you're looking out for is that standard of output that you would expect if we were all in the same space.
Yeah, brilliant. Any Shakira, anything to add to that?
A slightly different angle on that, I guess, that we're all in this time which is new for all of us. Like, hardly anyone's been through this before. So us as HR, the senior leaders, the CEOs, we don't all know what's going to be perfect and what's going to work for everybody. So what we've been doing is taking best practice and ideas from everywhere, LinkedIn, social media, all the different countries that are going through this in a slightly different time frame. And that's where, as HR, we might take the ideas to the senior leaders. And we don't know if it's going to work. It might fail, or it might be a really great idea. But I think the pace that we've got behind all of this that's happening so quickly helps us to say that, what are we going to lose? Let's try this. Other companies are doing it. And like you say, everybody has such different preferences, listening, talking, whether they want to be more introverted, extroverted, however they want to work. So we need to be able to be willing to try numerous things that are going to cater for all of our staff and their preferences. We can't just go one size fits all. We really need to be willing to adapt. And I think more so now than any other change program that anybody's ever seen, people are open to ideas because nobody has any answers, and we're all just doing our best. So let's make the most of this. Let's try innovative, crazy things. Let's make the most of it. As long as your fail rate and the impact of that is probably going to be quite low. I'm sure we'll all learn something.
I love that, Shakira. So we're into the last 5 minutes. So if we can, I'd like to dedicate this to my shirt and how disgusting it is. And I have a serious note with it, actually, which is, I think it was the NASA study, but they did, I'll send it in the follow-up round, but there's a Guardian article about how they did, when they put astronauts into isolation to prepare them for what a Mars mission could look like. And I think basically what they concluded is they missed one thing from the job description, which is humour and comedy. As in, society needs it to survive in a long period of isolation. So I just want to get your views on this, because it's quite a sensitive thing at the moment, comedy, because some people think that we need comedy. Some people think you shouldn't be joking about coronavirus because people are dying. Have you got any advice there on that about allowing comedy to flourish in times like this, and any personal views on it? Because people need, in tough times, people need a bit of fun as well, don't they? Linked to their happiness. So does anyone have any views on that?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of it. Yes, coronavirus there's the personal side that we need to be respectful of. The other side is that we are all working from home, so they're linked, but the working from home is a slightly different context. So you're probably more able to have the humor and comedy there. It's a little bit less personal as such. Whereas if you're making jokes about people getting sick or dying, that's obviously not really going to be that appropriate. I would say be mindful of, whether it's in different teams, different groups, the people who are in that group, where we start to hear that a relative has been impacted, or a friend of somebody has been impacted. You're obviously going to want to be more sensitive, and maybe calm it down with the jokes a little bit in that group. But another group where that everybody's sort of okay, you might carry on with your comedy and humor, but it's really, we do have to be sensitive, we do have to be mindful, and keep it within, I guess, respectful boundaries.
Yeah
I'd say
Sandip, can I ask you a question actually related to which there's a lot of people who don't know that you have a bit of a secret life as well, in terms of other stuff that you do around helping out the police force, which I don't want to go into too much. Everyone's going to think you're a secret FBI agent now, aren't they? Yeah. But this is more of a societal thing, right? What I've learned from working with HR people is generally they're decent people who care about other people. And you're someone who's worked in a more societal role. Is there anything you think HR people can use their skills in society at the moment? Because we've got to be there for our teams. There's a lot of people who want to help at the moment as well. Is there anything can HR skills, is there any way we can use them at the moment to help people out?
Yeah, I think one, and I always talk about, is the emotional intelligence side. And I think HR to have a skill of emotional intelligence is so, so important. But sharing that skill with like managers and like senior leads and so on. Yeah, anyone who's responsible for teams and people. I think, again, it goes back to like, if you're noticing anybody going a little bit quiet, or if anybody's struggling with something, just having that skill of emotional intelligence and just sharing your learning from that, and when you've had to use it and so on. I think for HR professionals is so important, and not to only just keep that skill for yourself, just kind of share it as much or as well as you can. In terms of the other side, like you mentioned, in terms of what I do, I think you just have HR naturally have that nurturing, caring side to want to just make sure that everybody is okay, and you also try to have a solution for everything. But kind of back to what Shakira said, we can't always have the answer right then, and we might try something that's totally new, but kind of forgive us if it kind of backfires and stuff. But we're just trying to obviously do the absolute best that we can. We made the decision to work from home, and that for some people was in Germany, for example, like all their families there, and they've just moved here and they don't actually have anybody here, and then the thought of isolation and working from home, and then it's just making that decision and being like, it doesn't make a difference, go, like if it's safe to be home with your family, and literally work from there. So it's picking that emotional intelligence, thinking this is going to affect someone down the line, let's just make the call now, and let's do it what's best for them. Yeah,
so Rosie's looking at me like we need to wrap up. So I just want to do a quick summary, because I've been trying to write down as we've gone, and you've said so many good points here. But if you go back to the beginning, make sense of our new world, I just say thank you to both of you, because just hearing what you're up to has really helped me personally, and I hope other people are listening. But the thing that I took down the most is that you guys, the consistent thing between you both is you both have but you're both prepared to adapt it and do trial and error and learn and not be afraid to see what another company are doing and trying it. So the two HRs that we've got on today. So yeah, I'll just finish up with to say thank you to everyone that's listened to HR in your PJs. I hope people enjoyed. If people want it to continue, it will. If people thought it was rubbish, let us know. So thank you. And one last thank you, Kira and Sandeep.
Thank you.
Adios, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.